We begin this hour with the latest on the arrest of the suspect in the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old Utah man authorities identified as the suspected gunman, is expected to be charged formally by prosecutors on Tuesday. NBC's Morgan Chesky joins us now from Spanish Fork, Utah. Morgan, thanks for joining us. Please update us on the latest. What's going on the ground in Utah?
Yeah, Jackie, right now, Tyler Robinson, that 22-year-old suspect, is sitting inside this Utah County jail. As you mentioned, he's being held here on multiple charges, including aggravated murder, but should not be formally charged until Tuesday. Investigators tell me that their work is really just now beginning, now that they have this suspect in custody. But it began in really a series of stunning developments, Jackie, that we found out through President Trump when he announced that someone was in custody early Friday. Authorities, however, say that after releasing images and video, it was a family member of Tyler Robinson who recognized him and then contacted a family friend who then in turn let law enforcement know that this 22-year-old in Washington, Utah, about 3 hours south of where we are, they believe he was the one responsible. And authorities also say that it was Robinson's own father who helped convince him to turn himself in. Now, we don't know what, if any, communication has taken place between Robinson and authorities since he's been taken into custody. But investigators are digging into key pieces of evidence. Among those, the cartridges that were inside the rifle that they found. They said that there were inscriptions on some of those unfired rounds, one reading, "Hey, fascist, catch," followed by a series of arrows. Investigators also tell me that his home, his cell phone, and other devices will likely be searched if they haven't already done so. This will only go towards building the case that he was, in fact, that gunman on top of that campus building who fired that single fatal shot, killing 31-year-old Charlie Kirk at that event Wednesday afternoon. We did have a chance to hear from Kirk's widow following his return to Arizona. She said following her husband's death that his mission will continue through her and that she will carry on that going forward. There was a lot of fear in this community, Jackie, following this fatal shooting, and I can tell you that that apprehension did end to a large degree when authorities announced that they had brought that 22-year-old suspect into custody, where he remains again inside this jail. Important to note, Utah's governor had said earlier that the death penalty very much remains on the table here prior to Robinson's arrest, and because of that aggravated murder charge that he could be facing, that still applies potentially. Jackie.
NBC's Morgan Chesky, thank you so much for your tireless reporting. Be safe and well. The assassination of Charlie Kirk is just the latest in the alarming and horrifying wave of political violence in this country. In just the last few years, we've seen the shooting of Louisiana Congressman Steve Scalise at a practice for a congressional baseball game. During 2020, there was the plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and the storming of the Capitol on January 6th, with a violent mob attacking Congress and police officers there to protect them. Then there was the attack on the husband of then Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi, as a home intruder fractured his skull. Of course, last year there were 2 assassination attempts against then candidate Donald Trump. This year alone, there has been the arson attack on the home of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. 2 Israeli embassy staffers were shot and killed outside a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C., and Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were tragically shot and killed, while Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were shot and injured. The suspect had a, quote, hit list of public officials, according to authorities. As New York Times columnist Ezra Klein wrote this week about Charlie Kirk's murder, the foundation of a free society is the ability to participate in politics without fear of violence. To lose that is to risk everything. Charlie Kirk and his family just lost everything. As a country, we came a step closer to losing everything, too. Kirk and I were on different sides of most political arguments. We were on the same side of the continued possibility of American politics. It is supposed to be an argument, not a war. It is supposed to be won with words, not ended with bullets. Joining us now is Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, who has faced multiple threats herself, and it was reportedly named on that Minnesota shooter's hit list. Secretary Benson, thank you so much for joining us this morning. What is your response to the latest that we've seen this week?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I think what happened to Kirk is unimaginable and horrifying. It doesn't matter who you voted for or what your beliefs are. No one's life should be threatened because of the beliefs that they hold and choose to express. There's no justification for violence of any kind. And we are in an era of political violence in our country that is stoked by violent rhetoric and lies, and it is terrifying and it is unacceptable. For the last 5 years, we've seen a growth here in Michigan in violent rhetoric and threats. For me, the first time was in January of 2020, 5 years ago, when I was dropping my kid off at school, and I got a call from my staff telling me that a man had just been arrested just a few miles away with a stockpile of guns after he called my office and verbalized several threats against my life. And since then, we've seen kidnapping attempts against our governor. Many prominent Jewish officials have been threatened at their home with hateful and anti-Semitic threats. I've received multiple bomb threats, people gather outside my home with guns, swatting attempts. During the holidays last year, we had a bomb threat and police came to my home and actually had to go through my kids' Christmas presents just to ensure they were safe. So yeah, that's what the last 5 years have been like. And then, of course, with the killing of Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, we've had to increase our security even more, being on that list. But, you know, it's not lost on me that this is meant to also create a culture of fear where we're afraid to do our jobs. And that hasn't worked. We're all proud to continue to serve here in Michigan, but it's long time past for all of us to turn away from using threats and violent rhetoric and return to civil discourse and respect.
Secretary Benson, you know, one of the things that people say in these moments, they said it after Minnesota, they say this is not who we are as a nation. But it does feel like this is who we are as a nation. And I worry that us saying that it's not who we are, it means that we can't control it. It is, we can indeed change it, right? You said we're in this era of political violence, a new era. It's happened before in history, but we don't have to be. Right. That is the thing that I keep coming back. We all have agency to make these decisions so that we can turn into the civil society that we dream of, and having these conversations and disagreements and there not being political violence. What breaks the fever here?
Well, you know, I agree. We all have a responsibility to turn down the hateful rhetoric and move towards a renewed commitment to civility and respect, especially in places where ideas are meant to be debated and not attacked. And so, yes, we all need to choose to commit to ending the violent rhetoric and the insults and the lies that create this heated environment. And, you know, I've spent some time this week reading the speech that Bobby Kennedy delivered after the assassination. And he said, you know, we have to make an effort, all of us in the United States, to understand, to get beyond, to go beyond these difficult times. And then he reminds us that we all should recognize the vast majority of people in this country. We want to live together. We want to improve the quality of our lives together. We want justice for all human beings that abide in our land. And I think we need to return to that framing. We need to return to leaders who will similarly call on our better angels to come together and recognize that we're all in this together, guys. Like, we've got a country that we want to thrive. I have a state in Michigan where I want to see everyone have a chance to thrive, get access to quality healthcare, good schools where they're safe, and get quality education. Like, we should redouble our efforts to fight for that and focus on that instead of tearing each other down.
You know, Secretary Benson, we as a nation, we're not in a good spot. And the family of John Hoffman, the Minnesota state senator who was wounded on the same day that the Minnesota speaker and her husband were killed, I'm just going to read part of the quote here. America is broken, and political violence endangers our lives and democracy. The assassination of Charlie Kirk today is only the latest act that our country cannot continue to accept. And then yesterday in the New York Times, Secretary Benson, with the headline, "After Kirk killing, Americans agree on one thing: something is seriously wrong." The article notes some of those interviewed had not heard of Mr. Kirk. Others felt strongly about him and his politics for and against, but virtually all agreed that Mr. Kirk's violent death seemed to confirm a deep fear that something is seriously wrong in this nation. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think, but as many have said, what's wrong? There's nothing that's wrong with our nation that can't be solved with what's best about our nation. In our democracy, we have a history, a responsibility, a shared connection to each other, and I think devotion to America and to the ideals that this country was founded on. So I do believe that this can be a turning point. I hope that it is, where instead of turning to, even when our leaders turn to additional division and divisive rhetoric, that we as citizens choose to not follow that lead, but instead chart our own path towards unity, towards recognizing what we all share together. We all want our loved ones to be happy and healthy and safe and nearby. Let's fight for that. Let's choose as individuals, as voters in this democracy, to elect leaders who reflect those values, no matter what side of the aisle they may find themselves on. That's our way out of this moment, through the citizens leading the way.